Thank you for having me.
Minister, do you accept it is a basic obligation of any government which claims to be democratic that it protects freedom of expression and it protects independent journalism? Do you accept that?
Of course, this is one of the fundamentals of Pakistan's constitution, enshrined in Article 19 of our constitution.
But the problem you have, Minister, is that it is quite clear, day after day, month after month, that your government isn't protecting journalists and isn't protecting freedom of speech.
Well, I will obviously contest this claim because, Pakistan is probably one of the freest states as far as media is concerned. We have about 43 international channels, including BBC here in Pakistan. We have 112 our own private channels, 258 FM channels, and 1,569 print publications. So you can imagine the kind of media we have, the size of media itself defies your claim. So Pakistan is certainly one of the most.
Yeah, Minister, I sense you're reading some of those figures off some notes, and if you are reading assiduously, you'll have read in the overnight media reporting of the attack on a leading independent journalist and YouTuber Asad Ali Tour. Now, you know that gunmen entered his residence, they threatened him, they beat him brutally, and they did all of that in the name of the ISI, Pakistan's intelligence service. That happened within the last 24 hours.
Well, yes, there has been an incident. I took notice of that incident last night. I sent the senior police officers to investigate the case. We have found even the CC footages. We got the footages of the people who were involved in this case, and people will be apprehended. People who were involved in this case, and people will be apprehended. But it's fashionable for the Western media to accuse ISI on every time when such incidents happen. And I know that there has been a history of people using and taking names of intelligence agencies to get immigration also. So this is one problem that we face.
You're information minister, aren't you? I mean, what are you doing to protect journalists? Because the case I referred to in the last 24 hours is by no means isolated. I just point you to one more in the recent past. Last month, Absar Alam, a prominent journalist who was shot in broad daylight. He was lucky to survive the incident. This happens month after month. You've been in office for some time. What are you doing about it?
Well, frankly, individual incidents do happen, and such incidents do happen everywhere in the world, and Pakistan is no exception.
No, Minister, incidents like this don't happen in many countries. The organization Reporters Without Borders has clear evidence that the situation for journalists in Pakistan is much, much more dangerous than most other countries around the world, and you're clearly finding the situation deteriorating rather than improving. What are you doing about it?
Well, I obviously would like to contest this claim again. The reason is that this question is without context. The situation in Pakistan is not dangerous for journalists only. The situation in the past for Pakistan was dangerous for every citizen because we were fighting this war on terrorism. And yes, many journalists, especially the field journalists, have been killed in this war, but so are many other civilians. So this was not something that was limited to journalists. Even the former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto was actually assassinated in one of the terrorist.
But Minister, let me stop you for a second, if I may. The people who are carrying out these attacks on independent journalists are not the people you call terrorists. They are people who are working for the state. They are involved in the security and intelligence services. Reporters Without Borders says, quote, "The influence of the military establishment, which cannot stand independent journalism, has increased dramatically since Imran Khan came to power. Impunity for crimes of violence against journalists is total. So again, the question, what are you doing about it?
Well, the number of journalists, the tax on journalists has actually reduced since the Prime Minister Imran Khan has taken over. And when you name any Pakistani organization or intelligence agency, you are bound to produce evidence of that as well. So all the incidents, those as you have mentioned, were investigated, and actually in most of the cases, the culprits were apprehended. But in these two incidents that you have specifically mentioned, even investigation has not concluded. So I don't know under what pretext you have concluded that the state must be involved in this case. I don't see any reason of this conclusion that you have opted to reach.
This isn't just about the fact that individual journalists are being attacked and sometimes murdered. It's about the real limits this puts upon the ability of media operators to actually operate with independence and freedom. I'm going to quote you now, Talat Hussein, a well-known journalist, host of a well-known TV show in your country on GOTV. He said, long after Imran had come to power, he said, my programs have been repeatedly censored. I was state interference in what the media in your country is allowed to say.
Well, first, I don't even consider Talat Hussein a journalist because I don't see his program on television for much before Prime Minister Imran Khan took over. His program was offloaded, and not because of any reason, because he was not getting ratings. In Pakistan, the media, obviously, like any other media, is a commercial media. They look at, they obviously retain people who get ratings for them. And if Mr. Talat Hussein and others, they couldn't get ratings, obviously they have to go offload it. As I told you earlier, and I would again like to read because I don't want to be, that we have about 112 private channels and 53 national channels. With this kind of the mass media that we have, how can you intimidate media? How can state be accused of intimidating media? Pakistan, if you compare us with any other third world country, or you compare it even with the first world, we probably have more free media than probably first world.
The BBC, I don't know whether you respect us as an independent news organisation. We certainly strive to be independent and impartial. The BBC offered a half-hour Urdu news programme to one of your channels. I think they're called AAJ TV. We had to, at the BBC, stop offering that half hour of news because AAJ TV was not able to broadcast it without interfering with the BBC's editorial content. And it was clear that that interference came under pressure from the Pakistan authorities. Now again, you are the information minister. You have a background working in the media yourself. You told me at the beginning of this interview you felt it was a key to any democracy to allow a free media. That is simply not happening in your country. Won't you even recognize that?
So had we thought as as aggressively as you just mentioned about BBC, we would not have allowed BBC World to operate in Pakistan. But fact of the matter is that BBC World is one of the most watched international channel in Pakistan, and we have never, obstructed its transmission by any means. So what happens in the case of Urdu channels? You have to abide by certain laws of local laws, which was not complied with. If they comply today, they are allowed to do that. And just let me quote one example about the irresponsible attitude of BBC Urdu here. Again, I would say I have a huge respect for the BBC as an organization. There was a woman, Asia Bibi, who was freed from larceny charges. There was a headline on BBC Urdu that Holland ambassador has gone to receive her from the jail. So the Holland embassy had to close down for 10 days because they got threats after that news, and that news is totally wrong. And unfortunately, we took no action against their own people. So
Isn't the truth, Minister, that when it comes to all of these issues, from attacks on individual journalists to censorship, systematic censorship, that in the end, you as Information Minister have no real power or control at all? There are other elements in the Pakistani state, some call them the deep state, who have powers that are far superior and dominate your own.
I am the Information Minister of world's fifth largest state. I'm the Information Minister of one of the 7 nuclear states of the world. No one can dare to undermine me. I am here with full authority, and I decide in Pakistan what will happen and what is happening.
So can we say that it's your personal responsibility then, this new set of internet regulations that came into force towards the end of last year, which according both to independent media analysts and to some of the world's most powerful internet media companies, including Google and Twitter, are extremely damaging to freedom of expression and reach a new level of state control on freedom of expression online in your country?
Can you specify any regulation that led you to conclude this what you just saying?
Well, to be specific, under the new regulations, social media companies, internet service providers, they face huge fines of millions of dollars for failure to curb the sharing of content which, to quote it, is deemed to be defamatory of Islam, promoting terror, hate speech, or in any content viewed as endangering national security. You add up all of those subjective delineations together, and it gives the state enormous power to censor what is seen online in Pakistan.
Well, frankly, hate speech is a universally recognized thing. Is a universally recognized fact that has to go, and all the states and organizations are under the duty not to allow hate speech. As far as the rest of the law is codified,
Anything that endangers national security, who decides what endangers national security?
That law has never been promulgated. That the social media rules are under discussion, and the part that you are referring to was never promulgated.